Hey everybody, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich here. Let's do an update on our little snow chance, which continues to trend down. It's pretty bad when you're starting with a trace to an inch being the high point of your snow chances, and it trends down to just basically flurries, which might be optimistic. Kind of tells you how limited the chances were to begin with, and they've even gone down from there. So let's talk about what's happening right now. Because honestly, the real story, we've tried to hit hard of this, is the Arctic air. Look at the Arctic air spilling into the country. I mean, below zero readings all the way down, almost into the Midwest. Single digits were down into Tennessee this morning, even northern Alabama. And the Arctic front is all the way down here. Look where the Arctic front is. This is a red flag, too, that we're not going to see wintry weather probably because the Arctic front's here. That's going to be the trigger for moisture, even if this backs up to the northwest, which I do expect it to do. It only gets to there. We need it probably right here to get snow inland into the Carolinas. And even for the coast, this is trending down. Now, you've probably heard the term, it's too cold to snow. That is 100% false. It can snow at any temperatures. Just ask anybody who lives in Canada or the Midwest or Alaska. But there is a little bit of truth to that for our part of the country because where that term came from was that when we get these big troughs or these big dips in the jet stream, they can push so far south that it shoves the storm track down here or down into the Gulf of Mexico, too far to our south. So it's not that it's too cold, it's just that these cold outbreaks tend to push or suppress the storm track well to the south, which keeps the snow to the south, and we don't get anything to the north. So it's kind of a rare setup. This doesn't happen all the time, but Arctic outbreaks tend to do this where they push the storm track so far to the south. So let's get into the nitty gritty on this. So I'm going to turn the radar and satellite on just to kind of show you, because this is the area we're watching. We're waiting for some low pressure to try to form here. And the Arctic front's here. You can already see all the clouds out here. And this is going to move in this direction. The problem is, normally when low pressure forms in the Gulf, it takes a churn up the East Coast, and it gets stronger as it moves over the Gulf Stream here. And that tends to pull in a bunch of moisture, which is a good thing if you love snow. If you hate snow, that's a bad thing. The problem with this low pressure system is it doesn't do that. What happens is the low tries to get going down here over Houston and New Orleans. This is where we see heavy snow, but then it moves due east and doesn't take on that churn, and it flattens out. It never gets strong and kind of does this. Instead of doing this and getting strong, we call it a negative tilt when it starts tilting back to the west. It stays flat. You'll hear me say flat a lot when I show you the models. That's what I'm talking about. The storm kind of stays even. It doesn't tilt back to the west. So let's get into where the watches and warnings are. Okay, pretty rare setup here. Look at the winter storm warnings. I mean, you don't see this very often. We've got winter storm warnings along all of the southern part of Texas, including Houston into New Orleans. I mean, these areas down here could end up with 3 or 4 or 5 inches of snow. Even have winter storm watches up to Atlanta, Macon, and Charleston, but nothing for the Carolinas because we're just not expecting. Now, this is a extreme cold warning. We do have extreme cold advisories. So cold, cold, cold is going to be the big story with this system. Let me jump over to the modeling because the European model, let's be honest, has been the best model with this all along. It's done the greatest job consistency-wise. So we're going to kind of stick with it. But short term, I'll start shifting to some other guidance. But it shows you the overall pattern. So we'll go into tonight, and you can see our low pressure system developing right down here. You see all the snow that it's pushing north. Because the Arctic front is so deep, there could be snow even into the Gulf of Mexico. That's how cold it is down in Louisiana, Texas, all the way into the Florida Panhandle. I mean, places like Destin, Fort Walton Beach, Panama City, Biloxi, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, Lake Charles, Houston are all going to get more snow than Charlotte has in the last 3 years. Kind of shows you how rare this is. And then it moves along the coast. Now, this is that flat thing I was talking about. See how the precipitation kind of flattens out here? And we see it kind of all stretched along the front. This is basically overrunning moisture coming up and over the Arctic front, kind of like a stalled front. But the low pressure is incredibly weak. It's out here. It's not close to the coast, and it's not tilting back in this direction. It's not taking on the typical East Coast snow event that we would normally see. And so because of that, that's really trending towards not much moisture. The other thing is the air mass over us, this Arctic high, which is going to be centered over Kentucky, parts of Tennessee. This is incredibly dry air. So even if you can get moisture back here, it's got to overcome really dry air. So those are two things working against snow. Is one, the air is over is really dry. We would need even more moisture to come in. So the little bit of moisture that could manage to get in here, the first batches are going to dry up and not really be a big issue. So I guess the only good news in all this, there's no risk of this being ice or sleet. It would be snow or nothing. So that's the sad part about this. This would be a fluffy white snow that would be very, very fluffed up, 15 to 1, 20 to 1 ratios maybe for snowfall. But it all stays off to the east and moves away. And so we end up with getting virtually nothing out of this system. So my updated snowfall maps kind of show you that. They're going to hint at where the snowfall is most likely, and actually where, I'm going to widen this out a little bit, where I think we will see nothing. So along the coast, this is our best chance. This area in blue, I'm going to go 1 to 2 inches. Now, could there be some pockets of 3 or 4? Certainly. A trace to an inch, maybe the Midlands in here. And then back here, our best hope is flurries. But I don't think it'll amount to anything at all. It just does not look like it's going to do much. This is a close-in view and shows you the update. So again, maybe Rockingham, the Sherrall, McBee, Chesterfield, Southern Lancaster, Kershaw counties, Southern Pines East, you might get some flurries late Tuesday night into Wednesday. It just looks like a non-event for us. But the cold is the real deal. We could spend, upwards of the next 3 or 4 days below freezing. We could briefly get above for an hour or two, but we're going to spend so much time below freezing that's going to be the real story over the next couple of days. So make sure you're taking care of your people, your pets, your pipes, all of that stuff, because that's the real deal. Winter weather impacts, you can see if we're going to have driving issues, it's going to be off to the east, not expecting much in the western part of the state. So limited to low impacts and mainly driving issues with this system. So that's the view right now. I will make one more adjustment tonight and tomorrow and give you like a last call map. But right now, this has been the trend the last 24 to 36 hours. If anything, this is going to continue to trend down. Quickly, I'll show you just briefly the snowfall amounts we could see to the south, because I think this is just something that, as a snow lover, I'm not doing this to rub it in. I just want to show you where we're going to see the snow. And so this is the blend of models. And if you look carefully, yeah, this is where we're going to see the snow. Look at this down in Louisiana, some of these areas up to 5 inches of snow. So like I said, some areas down here are going to get more snow in one storm than we've had up here in the Piedmont of the Carolinas in about 3 years. Sorry. Snow lovers, I feel you, but this is just not the setup for us. The last 2 systems have not been great setups. The last one was our first chance of snow in 3 years. We got a little bit, wasn't much. This one never was going to be much, and now it's almost nothing. So 2 kind of misses on snow chances, but we still got the rest of the winter to go. Hopefully the pattern will be better. One thing that's always interesting about these type of setups, sometimes it's the sneaky ones that get in here that we're not in a really cold pattern and we get a storm in the right track and just enough cold air. Marginal events sometimes can end up being the best events. And for the Carolinas, that's what it takes sometimes. A little bit more northern track, maybe some cold air over the northeast, not the middle of the country. Those are the kind of things to keep an eye out as we go through the rest of the winter.